DeAndre, good morning, DeAndre. Why do you see this as a good opportunity for yourself?
New beginning. I get to show the world, show you guys who I am as a player, on and off the court when it comes to leading, especially helping young guys on this team win, teaching them how to win, teaching them how tough it is to win in this league as well.
There was a video of you making a tour of the facilities, and you said something about, I felt like I just got drafted again. What did you mean by that? And do you feel like you have just a sense of renewal coming here, leading a situation that got kind of a little weird for you?
Just the way I was welcome, and things happened so quickly. The trade happened, and I was done on the jet headed here to PDX, and it just felt like I got drafted, and I was on the jet to my next city that I was gonna call home. So, walking in there, seeing my name, seeing everybody around me, some of the facility people and some of the front office people in the front just, showing me love as soon as I touched down. And, it really did feel like I got drafted. I felt the love as soon as I walked in, and I was, welcomed humbly.
Basketball-wise, you also feel like this is a fresh year?
Most definitely. Like I said, coming on a fresh team with a bunch of young new guys and, me having a little bit of experience, I can help them, just teach them how to win and teach them how difficult this is, to win in this league and how you approach it.
DeAndre, how much does having those young guys energize you a little bit? I mean, I know you've only been here a little bit, but is it different energy than kind of where you were before?
You're just hungry. You can tell that they're eager to learn. Coach Billups, he has those guys' heads on their shoulders where they're coming in on off days, just handling business. And, guys who've been in the league for quite some time, they're a little hesitant with things like that. To see some young guys who barely have a year under their belt, just come in and take care of business on off days. Off season is, it's pretty cool to see because, that's the type of energy I'm on. It don't matter how young we are, we still have to handle business.
DeAndre, Coach Phillips was just talking about how they're not going to give you the Joel Embiid treatment where they're going to dump the ball into you 30 times, but he does expect your role to grow, and that seemed to be something that you wanted in Phoenix. Kind of what do you expect your kind of role to be on this team, not just as a veteran player amongst a bunch of young guys, but just kind of the ins and outs on offense and defense, is kind of where you kind of see yourself fitting in and taking advantage of situations?
Mainly just establishing myself, to let the team know that they can trust me. Whether it comes to patience, with our young guys and, just being that example setter when it comes to defense and, being a vocal point where, I can just lead them and not, give them constructive criticism and, just helping them and being there for them and, understanding that, the things they're going through, I'm going through as well. And, just guide them and just be there for them. I have guys that's been there for me and, guys that were on me. So I think I know the terminology and how to pick people up and know my personnel.
DeAndre, this whole summer, obviously the Dane trade talks were kind of an ongoing thing for 3 months, and over the weeks there were different iterations of it that involved you. Like what kind of communication or heads up did you have either from the Suns or from your agent, or just kind of the whole process of when did you kind of know like Portland might be a possibility, and what was that whole process like for you?
I mean, on the day of it, I think midday, my agent called me and that was it. The GM for the Phoenix Suns came and brought me upstairs and told me that I got traded here, and then that was it. I thank him for handling it the way they handle it and, just accommodating to my wishes, and here we are today.
You mentioned a fresh start. What's the biggest lesson you learned from Phoenix that you're hoping to kind of implement in this new chapter in your career?
Win. Every game counts. Win. And understanding that, this is a team's game. We need everybody on the team to contribute to just get one win, whether it's in the regular season or the postseason. Just understanding how to win the right way and, what are we going to be known for in this league, when other teams play us.
DeAndre, you're just 25, but you're a leader, right? You're a leader on this team now. You're one of
Correct.
the older guys on the team. Are you kind of embracing that leadership role?
I've been embraced it, even when I was on teams with guys older than me. I feel like, I've told them constructive criticism in the heat of moments. You know, I've had my times where I had to speak and, you know, everybody's, you know, talking when I speak, and, you know, just times where it's a respectful thing, it's a respected thing. You know, I put in work, I put in the time, and, you know, there's times where you do have to say certain things for, you know, get your point across the right way, you know, to get the job done. We're on the same team we're on the same mission to get the job done. So that's one thing I can say is, you know, just being that vocal point and consistently just, you know, saying the right thing, no matter the moments.
Hey, Deandre, welcome to Portland.
Thank you.
Curious about if you have any stories or experiences of coming to Portland over the years that may have stood out, whether that's, you know, the fan base playing against the Trailblazers, and also what your message would be to fans.
Yeah, I definitely know the fan base out here is phenomenal. I definitely came out here and got my ass whooped a couple times by a 40. You know, so I definitely know how the fans can get, you know, when they're turned up. So that's the fun part. The fans is all in it, and you know, we the show in town. So, you know, I'm gonna try my best to do what I can to just give you guys the best of me.
DeAndre, you know, obviously this team, there's a bunch of young guards. You know, how do you go about helping those guys kind of develop chemistry with you? You know, obviously they're going training camp. You know, how do you kind of develop those guys, help them?
Yeah, and need some big guards as well. They're not no little guards. These dudes can, you know, they're pretty big. I'll say, you know, just guiding them and letting them understand the physicality of the game. You know, creating chemistry through play. You know, we have a big training camp coming up. You know, I think that's going to be a mental thing. You know, just giving them certain terminologies that they'll use in the game. You know, coach will be on me on the defensive terms on how I must go about things, and, you know, just all of us just working together. We all young, you know, none of us know it all, and that's the fun part about it. We're young and we get to learn, but we're very hungry, very.
DeAndre, for people that aren't familiar with you and your game, can you just kind of sum up what you bring to both sides of the floor and to the team in general?
Dominance. I bring dominance. My name is Dominating. I play with a lot of passion. You guys can tell. A lot of grit as well, but, you know, I try to take the hypocrisy out the game where, you know, I'm telling my teammate one thing, I'm doing the other. You know, I'm more like a team player who, you know, I'll make the sacrificial decision and take myself out, and, you know, less shots for me. But, you know, when it comes to winning, I'll be the down and the gritty guy to get the job done, close out possessions, and, you know, just take the blame on things like that.
DeAndre, for all your domination, if there has been a criticism of your game, it's been your motor, and that sometimes you're not as consistent as people want you to be. How do you counter that, and why do you think that is?
It's not countering anything. Look at the position I was playing in, the environment I was playing in. You know, it can sometimes put toll on your mental. You know, to be honest, I think I checked every list in the box, so a motor should not be anything of that. You know, I've accomplished a lot of things where my motor is not a question. Playoffs, no matter what it is, I play the best I can play. I play hard as I can play. You know, that won't be a question at all. That's one of the reasons why I told you guys this summer that I'll be changing the narrative. You know, I'm with an organization that wants me and wants me to succeed. So there's a lot more passion when you feel that mentally, and, you know, you're seeing that physically as well. So there would be a lot more grit and a lot more domination this year. All right. Thank you.